Hi friends, I am Prashant Gupta and I am a Fuji fanboy. I have been using Fuji cameras since 2018. My first body was the XH1, then I acquired the XT3, then I acquired the XT4, and along with it I also got the XC4 and X100V. As you can make out, I have been into being friends with the Fuji cameras now for quite some time. I understand the entire ecosystem of the Fuji cameras. So last year Fuji XH2 came out and I couldn't resist myself. I acquired that, and now I have this baby in my hand, XT5. Now this is a camera which I've taken on loan. I've been using it for quite some time now, and I have become quite fond of it, but I don't think I'm going to get it because I still have my XT4, which is now taking this video, as you can see, and I also have the XH2. So this one, I just thought that I will, sort of ramble about this camera with my friends who would like to know about this camera. Well, as you can see, this is a beautiful camera, and what brings me close to this camera is the retro look. See, if you see the back, it's got those vintage buttons and dials on top of it. The look of this whole camera to me is wonderful, right? As you can see yourself, it's a beautiful piece of equipment to have and hold. So I'm going to be talking a bit about this camera with you. Now that I've shown you this camera, I will move up from it and I will get hold of my cell phone because I must refer to it, otherwise I'll forget the points which I want to discuss with you. So let me do that. So the first thing which I would like to talk to you about this camera is the retro charm. I already discussed it. Looks beautiful. It has got that classy vintage look which draws attention towards it. If I have this camera on my shoulder and I walk on the streets, people do turn their heads to have a look at what am I carrying. So that is one issue, and it's got all the buttons and dials on top panel that forms the exposure triangle. So when it comes to aperture, you have it right in front of you. You can change the aperture. If you are using the Fuji lenses, then you have the shutter dial and you have the ISO dial. All that can be set on top. Also, you have the exposure compensation dial. That also can be you know adjusted right from top. So that is the charm which this camera has. Now the body is very compact and lightweight compared to other cameras in the series, and the other APS-C cameras. I think this one has got a beautiful look and feel to it. It's weather sealed, it's made of magnesium alloy, so it feels solid in your hand. So when you're going out, you are not really afraid of the elements. It can take a bit of beating, but do be careful, don't take it for granted. So it's you can be rest assured that if there is a bit of dust and all that, it will not trouble you or your camera. It has got a three-way tilting screen. I think I showed it to you. If I didn't, maybe I'll show it to you later. Now this is a retrograde step I personally feel because the XT4 had a fully articulating screen. So I was talking to you about the three-way tilting screen. So this is a retrograde step because when I'm filming myself like I'm doing right now on XT4, it has got a fully articulating screen, so I can watch myself and I can position myself wherever I want to, and it's not that I am blind about what's happening on the screen when the recording is going on. But now that we only have a three-way tilting screen, then that becomes a bit difficult, and probably one has to add a separate monitor to be able to record. So that is not a very good thing which they have done, and for that purpose I may not go in with XT5 because I already have a XH2 and XT4. I may probably go in with XS20, which has got an articulating screen. So Fuji, try and understand that, or maybe that is a strategy that people buy XT5 and XS20 too. So that's up to you. Now, This one has got a 40 megapixel sensor. So the image quality is very good, the dynamic range is very good, the resolution is much higher than the 26.1 megapixel sensor which XT4 had, and therefore you can get very large images which you can also crop. And not even that, you get very good quality out of the photos. That needs to be understood. Right. So it now has a X trans 5 processor, which brings in the image quality to a great standard. One. Second, it's now capable of handling noise quite a bit. So you get nice, good images right up to about 6400 ISO. This processor also helps you in autofocus. So the autofocus now has become quite fast compared to what it was earlier. It also now, this camera has got subject detection. So you have the face detection, you had it earlier also, but now in this and the XH2 and that same line of cameras which got released in 2023 or end of 2022, I think, they all have this subject detection. So you can detect birds, you can detect animals, you can detect cars, you can detect trucks, you can detect aircrafts and motorcycles. So all these options are available, which makes it easy for you to acquire and keep your subjects in focus. So that's a very good thing. Now the ISO range, as I have already said earlier, that it has now very high ISO performance, and ISO range is now from 125 to 12,800, which can be expanded to 64 and 15,200. Another good thing which this camera has is the pixel shift multi-shot. By using that, you can get a very detailed image up to 160 megapixels. Of course, you will have to do a bit of work, but that quality of image is astounding. I just hope I have some samples and I will show it to you. It's really, it brings out the detail so much, which I really appreciate. Then the camera has all the Fuji simulations which were there earlier, and few more have been added. So, Fuji film has always been famous for the kind of film simulations, and that still is there within the camera, with few more which have come in. The colors which come out of this camera is outstanding. Even earlier, the colors of Fuji film were renowned, but now it's much better. It can now shoot in very high burst mode. With mechanical shutter, it can shoot up to 15 frames per second. And if you go to electronic shutter, it can shoot up to 20 frames per second. But remember that in electronic shutter, your images get cropped to 1.25. Now, it also takes very good videos. It's not as good as its, shall I say, sibling, but bigger sibling, that is the XH2, which can shoot up to 8K. But this also can shoot up to 6.2K, which is pretty good. I would say I would never go beyond 4K because the files become too large to handle. It's not required because most of us are now watching videos on either our cell phones or TVs. So I think that resolution is good enough. You don't really require more than that. That is one. It also now has f-log 2. So what happens, you get a better videos with good dynamic range, which you can bring out the colors, etc. in post-processing. That needs to be understood. So friends, as you would have realized by whatever I have spoken, that this camera is now way beyond what Fuji XT4 was because of the 40 megapixels and because of the new X5 trans processor, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Now wait on for some time. I have few images which will be coming up, and see for yourself the quality which this camera gives you. Take care and happy learning.